The war did not begin with fire or explosions. It began with silence. Across the galaxy, silence had become law, weapons were banned, ships were scanned, armies were disbanded. The Galactic Union believed that by removing weapons, they had removed war itself. For many species, this rule brought relief. For others, it brought fear, but no one dared to break it. On a distant human colony world named Iran's Reach, the silence felt wrong. Commander Hale stood on the edge of the settlement, looking at the sky. He was human, tall, tired, and older than he looked. His hands were empty. All soldiers' hands were empty now. The Union's law did not allow even a blade or a pulse tool. Every defense system had been removed years ago. The scanners had shown movement near the colony's border, not ships, not weapons. Living forms? They are close, Hale said quietly. Beside him stood Myra, a civilian engineer. The Union patrol is 3 days away, she replied. We cannot ask for help. Hale nodded. Everyone knew the truth. If something attacked them now, they would not be allowed to defend themselves. The law was clear. Any use of weapons would bring punishment from the Union itself. That was when the lights went out, not just in the colony, but in the sky above it. Stars dimmed as massive shapes moved between the world and space. Silent ships. Union scanners would say they were unarmed, but Hale knew better. Many species had learned how to hide danger behind rules. Creatures emerged from the forest, tall, thin, and gray, with eyes that reflected no emotion. The Car Dominion had arrived. They carried no weapons. They did not need to. The first human fell when a car grabbed him and broke his neck with bare hands. Another was thrown into a wall so hard that bones shattered. Panic spread fast. People ran. Children screamed. There was no warning siren because alarms were also considered weapons of fear. Hale shouted orders, even though he knew they meant nothing. Humans tried to fight with hands and tools, but the car were stronger, faster, and trained for close combat. This was not a battle, it was a harvest. The Union would call it legal. By sunrise, the colony was broken. Bodies lay in the streets. Buildings burned from impact damage, not fire. The car gathered survivors in the central square. Still no weapons were visible, only hands, claws, and strength. Among the survivors was a child named Eli. Eli was small, quiet, and held a creature in his arms. It looked like a dark, spotted animal with bright eyes and soft fur. To humans, it seemed harmless. To the car, it was unfamiliar. One of the car leaders stepped forward and looked down at the child. "Release the creature," it said in broken human language. Eli did not move. The creature in his arms made a low sound, not a growl, but something calmer. Its paw rested against Eli's chest. Hale watched, confused. That creature had appeared weeks ago, injured and alone. Eli had found it and refused to leave it. The Union had scanned it. It was alive, natural, and not classified as a weapon. The car leader reached out to take it. Before its hand touched the child, every car in the square froze. The air changed. Not with heat or force, but with pressure, invisible and heavy. The ground vibrated slightly, like a deep breath being taken by the world itself. The creature in Eli's arms opened its eyes wider. Light reflected from them, not bright but deep like space itself. The pressure grew stronger. One car fell to its knees. Another stepped back in fear. The leader hesitated, then pulled its hand away. "What is that?" it asked. Eli finally spoke. His voice was soft. "He is not a weapon." The pressure faded as quickly as it came. Silence returned. The car stood uncertain. They had faced armies, but never this. Union law said nothing about creatures like this. It said nothing about children holding power without intent. It said nothing about fear without weapons. High above the colony, Union observation drones recorded everything. The data was sent across the galaxy. For the first time since the ban, the Union Council felt something they had not planned for. Doubt. The war had not arrived with weapons. It had arrived with a child. The car did not attack again. They stood in silence, tall and still, their eyes fixed on the child and the creature in his arms. Around them, the humans waited, afraid to breathe. The pressure was gone, but the memory of it stayed heavy in the air. Commander Hale slowly stepped forward. His heart was beating hard, but he kept his voice calm. "You said this colony is under Union law," he said. "You have taken what you wanted. Leave." The car leader looked at him. "This world is weak," it replied. "Weak worlds do not survive." Hale wanted to shout. He wanted to fight. But he had no weapon, and even if he did, he could not use it. The Union's laws were watching from the sky. Then the small creature moved again. It lifted its head and looked directly at the car leader. The pressure returned, but this time it was focused. Not wild, not angry, controlled. The car leader staggered back one step. "We leave," it said suddenly. The other car turned their heads in shock. They had never retreated before, not from unarmed prey, not from a child, but they obeyed. Within minutes, the car were gone. Their ships lifted silently into the sky and vanished into space. The pressure faded. The stars returned to normal. The colony was quiet again. Humans slowly began to move. Some cried, some fell to their knees. Others stared at Eli and the creature as if they were seeing them for the first time. Hale walked toward the child. "Eli," he said gently, "are you hurt?" Eli shook his head. "He kept me safe." The creature blinked slowly. Union drones descended from the sky, smooth and silver, their lenses glowing. They scanned the ground, the survivors, the damage. They paused on Eli. A calm artificial voice spoke. "Unidentified anomaly detected. Biological entity under review." Myra stepped forward. "It's not a weapon," she said quickly. "You scanned it before." "That scan was incomplete," the drone replied. The creature made a soft sound, not angry, curious. The drone suddenly shut down and fell to the ground. Every human froze. Another drone moved closer, then stopped. It did not shut down, but it did not approach either. High above, on the Union Capitol world, the council chamber filled with noise. Screens showed the recordings from the colony. The car retreat, the pressure, the child, the creature. "This is impossible," one council member said. "No weapons were used." "Correct," another replied, "which means no law was broken." "Yet a hostile force retreated," a third said. "That should not be possible." The council had built peace on definitions. Weapons were banned. Violence was controlled. Power was measured only by tools and machines. They had not planned for something that did not fit. "Classify the entity," the High Arbiter ordered. A scientist spoke. "It emits no energy signature we recognize, no radiation, no force field. It appears alive." Another added, "It may be influencing space itself, but without aggression." The room grew quiet. "Send an envoy," the Arbiter said. "Not soldiers, observers." Back on Iran's reach, humans worked through the night. They treated the injured. They gathered the dead. The silence felt heavier now, filled with questions. Eli sat inside a small shelter. The creature rested beside him. It had followed him everywhere since the attack. Myra knelt nearby. "What is he?" she asked softly. Eli thought for a moment. "He was alone," he said, "like me." Myra frowned. "What do you mean?" "My parents are gone," Eli replied. "The car took them." The creature placed its paw on Eli's arm. Hale listened from the doorway. Something twisted inside him. He had lost people too. Many had. The next morning, Union ships arrived, not warships, smooth white vessels with no visible weapons. Envoys stepped out, wearing neutral robes. They looked around at the damage, at the humans, at the child. One of them spoke. "We are here to ensure the law is followed." Hale clenched his fists. "The law let this happen." The envoy did not answer. Instead, it looked at the creature. "That being must be surrendered for study," it said. Eli held the creature tighter. "No. It is not a weapon," the envoy said, "but it may become one." "It saved us," Hale said, "without hurting anyone." The envoy hesitated. This was not part of its training. The creature lifted its head again. The air shifted, gently this time, like a warning without threat. The envoy felt it and stepped back. "I feel fear," the envoy whispered. The council watched through the envoy's eyes. Fear without violence, power without weapons. For the first time, the Union realized a terrible truth. They had not ended war. They had only misunderstood power. And somewhere in the ruins of a small human colony, a child and a creature were changing the future of the galaxy, without breaking a single law. The Union envoys did not take the creature. They returned to their ship with uneasy silence, carrying recordings and sensor data that refused to explain what they had felt. Fear without threat, pressure without force. It followed them like a shadow as they left Iran's reach. The colony did not celebrate. Too many were dead. Too much was lost. Humans rebuilt shelters and graves at the same time. Eli stayed close to Hale and Myra, the creature always near him, calm and watchful. Word spread fast. Within days, other species heard what had happened. A car force had retreated without weapons. Union drones had failed. A child had stood untouched while trained killers stepped back. Many dismissed it as rumor. Others felt something deeper. On the car homeworld, silence filled the war chamber. The leaders watched the recordings again and again. They slowed them down, enhanced them, studied every movement. There was no attack, no strike, no hidden weapon. Yet their strongest warriors had felt weakness. "This is unacceptable," one leader said. We were made to rule through strength. Another replied, that strength failed. They remembered the pressure. It did not crush, it did not burn. It simply existed, making resistance feel meaningless. For the first time, the leader said slowly, we felt small. The car began to fear humanity, not because humans were strong, but because they brought something that changed the rules. On the Union Capitol world, debate turned into conflict. Some council members argued for control. Remove the child and the creature, study them, contain the risk. Others warned against it. The law does not allow forced removal. No weapon was used, no rule was broken. What happens when others learn this? One asked. What if more such beings exist? A scientist answered quietly. Then weapons were never the real danger. The Union had built peace by limiting tools. They had never limited intent, emotion, or bond. The creature did not respond to command or threat. It responded to connection. That terrified them. Union ships increased patrols around human space. Not openly hostile, but watching, measuring, waiting. Humans noticed. Hale stood with other colony leaders during a broadcast from the Union. The message was calm, neutral, and empty. Humanity is advised to remain within designated systems. Further expansion is temporarily suspended. Myra whispered, they're afraid. Yes, Hale replied, and fear makes rules flexible. Eli did not listen to the broadcast. He sat outside watching the sky. The creature rested beside him, its breathing slow and steady. You feel it too, Eli said softly. The creature's ears twitched. More visitors arrived, not soldiers. Traders, scientists, refugees, species who had lived under the car or others like them. They wanted to see the child. They wanted to see the creature. Some came with hope, others with plans. One group tried to offer Eli comfort and gifts. Another tried to record the creature up close. When they pushed too far, the air grew heavy again. No one was hurt, but no one forgot. The message was clear. This was not something to take. This was something to respect. News spread across the galaxy. Humanity had found power without violence. HFY stories began to circulate in hidden channels. Humans were not strongest because they fought harder, but because they connected deeper. The car did not accept this. A second force moved toward Iran's reach. Larger, more disciplined, still unarmed. Union law would allow it. Union observers watched. When the ships arrived, Hale felt the weight in his chest. They're back, he said. The colony gathered again. Fear returned, but it was different now. People looked at Eli not as a child, but as a symbol. That scared Hale even more. The car leader stepped forward. The child must come with us, it said. This is necessary. Eli shook his head. The creature rose slightly, standing on all fours now. The pressure did not strike outward. It pressed inward, focused on the car alone. They staggered. This is not war, Hale said. You came unarmed. So did you, the leader replied. Yet we lost. Union drones hovered closer. The council watched live. Observe, one council member said. No weapon, no violence. The creature stepped forward. For the first time it spoke, not in sound but in feeling. Every being present felt it. Images of stars forming, worlds growing, life choosing connection over domination. A simple truth passed between minds. Power does not need destruction. The car fell to their knees, not in pain, in understanding. The leader lowered its head. We withdraw, it said. We cannot fight what we cannot challenge. When the ships left again, the Union Council chamber was silent. This changes everything, the arbiter said. Yes, a scientist replied, because now others will search for the same thing. Humanity did not claim victory, but the galaxy noticed. Rules built on fear began to crack, and far from the council halls, a quiet child sat beside a creature that should not exist, while the future of war slowly came undone. The galaxy did not stay calm. What happened on Iran's reach could not be contained. The Union tried to control the story, but fear and hope moved faster than any law. Across many systems, leaders asked the same question. How did humanity do it? Some believed the answer was the creature. Others believed it was the child. Many believed it could be copied. They were wrong. On a distant world under Union rule, a powerful species called the Vaer attempted their own test. They gathered a group of younglings and placed them near a rare life form, hoping to create the same bond. They watched closely. They waited. Nothing happened. When frustration grew, the Vaer tried to force the connection. The life form screamed. The pressure that followed was not calm. It was violent. Buildings cracked. Minds shattered. The Union intervened too late. The experiment ended in disaster. The report reached the council within hours. It cannot be forced, a scientist said. The bond must be real. Another added, human children are not trained for dominance. They protect without thinking of power. That made humanity dangerous in a way the galaxy had never faced. Meanwhile, more species turned against the Union. They saw the laws as weak. If weapons were banned but domination could still exist, then the rules protected only those strong enough to break others without tools. Small rebellions began. Not with guns or blades, but with bodies, numbers, and control. The Union could not respond. Every enforcement action risked breaking its own laws. On Iran's reach, Union officials returned. This time they brought agreements. The High Arbiter appeared on a screen in front of Hale, Myra, and Eli. The child will be placed under Union protection, it said, for his safety. Hale's voice was hard. You mean your control? We mean survival, the Arbiter replied. The galaxy is unstable. Eli stood quietly, the creature beside him. He stays, Eli said, or I go. The room went still. The Arbiter felt the pressure through the screen, faint but real. It was enough. We will negotiate, the Arbiter said. Humanity had never negotiated from a position like this. Not with fleets, not with threats, but with refusal. Across human space, people watched. They felt pride, but also fear. If the Union fell, chaos would follow. If it stayed, it might turn on them. The creature began to change, not physically, but in presence. It moved farther from Eli now, exploring, watching others. When it did, people felt safer, not threatened. The pressure softened, spreading like balance instead of warning. Scientists studied from a distance. They noticed a pattern. The creature responded to groups, not individuals. It reacted strongest where protection, care, and trust existed. This is not a weapon, Myra said during a briefing. It is a response. A mirror, Hale added, to intent. The Union Council argued day and night. Some wanted to rewrite the laws, others wanted to erase the problem entirely. The child will grow, one member said. What happens then? No one knows, another replied. That is the fear. Then the worst news arrived. A rogue faction within the Union had acted without approval. They had taken another human child from a border colony. No creature was present. They believed the child alone was enough. The attempt failed. The child was harmed. When Eli felt it, he cried out. The creature reacted instantly. The pressure surged across systems, stronger than ever before. Not violent, but absolute. Ships lost power. Communications failed. Every species felt the same message. This is wrong. The rogue faction surrendered within minutes. The Union understood too late. Humanity's strength was not something that could be stolen or controlled. It existed only where care was given freely. The galaxy stood on the edge of collapse or change, and everyone knew the final choice was coming. The Union could no longer pretend to be united. Systems argued openly. Species accused each other. Some demanded the law be strengthened. Others wanted it erased. Peace, built on fear of weapons, had begun to rot from the inside. Human space became the center of everything. Union ships formed a wide perimeter, not to attack, but to contain. Officially, it was for protection. Everyone knew the truth. The Union was afraid of what humanity represented. Hale watched the stars from the colony's command center. They're not leaving, he said. They don't know how, Myra replied. Eli sat nearby, older now, his voice calmer, his eyes more aware. The creature rested beside him, larger than before, its presence steady and quiet. They won't hurt us, Eli said. Not unless they choose to. That was what scared the galaxy most. Choice. A secret meeting was called on the Union capital world. Not all species were invited. Humanity was. For the first time in history, a human delegation stood in the council chamber. No weapons, no armor, just people. Eli stood among them. The creature did not enter the chamber. It waited outside, its presence still felt inside, like a gentle weight. The High Arbiter spoke. The Union is failing. Our laws no longer protect balance. Your laws never stopped violence, Hale replied. They only changed how it looked. A council member shouted, You bring chaos. Eli looked at them. No, he said softly, we brought a mirror. Silence followed. Reports flooded in during the meeting. Rebellions had stopped, not because of force, but because people were afraid of crossing a line they now felt. The presence is everywhere, a scientist said. Not controlling, but reminding. The creature had begun to reach out, not in domination, but in connection. Worlds with kindness felt calm. Worlds driven by fear felt heavy. The Union faced a truth they could not escape. Their system rewarded obedience, not care. A final proposal was made. We rewrite the law, the Arbiter said. Weapons are not the problem, intent is. How do you enforce intent? Someone asked. You don't, Eli answered. You teach it. The chamber erupted in argument, but beneath it all something had shifted. The fear was no longer of violence. It was of being seen for who they truly were. Outside the chamber, the creature lifted its head. The pressure grew not as warning but as invitation. Species across the galaxy felt it. A choice. Continue ruling through fear and control or accept a future built on responsibility. Not everyone agreed. A final fleet gathered at the edge of Union space. Old powers, old thinking, still unarmed but full of anger. They moved toward human systems. The Union watched, unable to stop them without breaking everything they stood for. Eli closed his eyes. The creature responded. For the first time, the pressure did not target a place or people. It spread evenly across space, calm and undeniable. The fleet stopped. Pilots wept. Leaders collapsed. Not from pain, but from understanding the cost of what they were about to do. They turned back. The galaxy held its breath. The Union had one last chance. Change or end. And everyone knew the next moment would decide the future forever. The Union did not collapse. It changed. The final decision was not loud. There was no vote that shook the stars, no announcement filled with pride. Instead, the High Arbiter spoke a single sentence that was broadcast across every system. The law will no longer judge tools, it will judge intent. For many, the words felt empty. Laws always sounded good. What mattered was what followed. Union fleets withdrew from human space. Borders reopened. Observation drones were reduced, not replaced. Schools were funded instead of patrol stations. Worlds once controlled through fear were offered guidance, not punishment. It was not perfect, but it was real. Iran's reach slowly healed. New buildings rose beside old scars. Graves remained, not